All right, welcome back to the channel. So Terence Crawford is going to face either Kieth Thurman or Josesito Lopez next. Those are two of the candidates that are meant for him. And Manny Pacquiao and Shawn Porter are off the table. That, according to rumors that I've heard, and honestly, just pure logic. Let's talk about what Terence Crawford's next step is, and will it get Terence Crawford off the hot seat from boxing fans? Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So it is imminent. Terence Crawford will be announcing pretty soon who he's going to fight next. There was a series of tweets that came out about 2 days ago where he was kind of just lighting off really early in the morning. And in one of the comments, he said, I just cannot wait to fight. Wants to get back in the ring, wants to get a highlight reel knockout and be able to show people that are right now criticizing him on both sides, that he's a great fighter. And more than likely, like I said, it's going to be announced pretty soon. This is something I've heard from Steve Kim, Blue Blood Sports TV. I've seen some of his videos where I've seen the headlines of his videos where he's talking about that. I've also heard from people that Kieth Thurman is very, very much in consideration for it because Kieth Thurman is a guy that is pushing to get any shot that he can get to a title, for a title, and that he would definitely accept the fight between Terence Crawford. So of the people that we know that are out there that either Terence Crawford has talked about fighting or people have talked about Terence Crawford fighting next, the list is Manny Pacquiao, Josesito Lopez, Shawn Porter, the obvious one out of Top Rank, not a lot of people are talking about, but Alexander Putin, I believe, is definitely still a candidate for the next fight with Terence Crawford, and Kieth Thurman. Even though Alexander Putin is a little bit, further removed, is just somebody kind of like Igis Kalvinakis that is a top-ranked welterweight and an in-house fight that is pretty much sitting there waiting to be made for Terence Crawford. Now, the conversation about the person I'm telling you that I believe it's going to wind up being either Josesito Lopez, Kieth Thurman, or just somebody that you're absolutely positively disgusted with. However, the idea that he is going to fight Manny Pacquiao next, I think, is completely ridiculous. Number one, Manny Pacquiao no longer has the WBA title, and so that's not a championship fight. I don't know what he would gain from fighting Manny Pacquiao, other than a lot of money, but I do not believe that it's necessarily going to change the outlook on Terence Crawford if he was able to win that fight. But most importantly, I don't think Manny Pacquiao is really thinking about Terence Crawford. Everything that I've heard about Manny Pacquiao fighting in a actual boxing match, not including what we've heard about, him fighting Conor McGregor or doing something like that, the name that constantly comes up in that regard is Mikey Garcia. And Mikey Garcia, I do believe, is the path that Manny Pacquiao would take well before he fights Terence Crawford. What Manny Pacquiao said that he wanted in order to fight Terence Crawford, I do believe was something like $40 million. Similar to a video that I did about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, nobody is going to be paying for that fight, in this type of pandemic, especially if they got any chance that the fight might belly out because of a lawsuit or because of an arbitration situation going on with Deontay Wilder. So with the Manny Pacquiao fight, I just don't see where they're going to get $50, $60 million for that fight. Not now, maybe a little bit later. However, a fight between Manny Pacquiao and Mikey Garcia, I'm sure that Manny Pacquiao would take less money for Mikey Garcia because he may believe that Mikey Garcia is a significantly easier fight than Terence Crawford. And that's why I think we're hearing about Manny Pacquiao wanting to fight Mikey Garcia and why he did not go out of his way to try to make a fight with Errol Spence Jr. or Terence Crawford. I think ultimately that the recognition of that fact is what got him stripped of his WBA title, right? So I just don't see that particular fight taking place. Now, the Shawn Porter fight, I think, is probably the fight that, other than Errol Spence Jr., but Shawn Porter is probably the fight that I want to see the most out of Terence Crawford next. And it would be wonderful if he popped up and said, "Hey, Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter." But what's the likelihood? What's the likelihood of that? Not particularly high in my opinion, because of the conversations that have already taken place in public between Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter's camp, for everybody to hear, which was Shawn Porter essentially saying, "Yeah, I'm the WBO mandatory. I want to fight Terence Crawford." Terence Crawford saying, "Yeah, okay, you are the mandatory. Exercise that request to become the mandatory, and we can fight." But what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that there's a specific revenue split between the person that the champion and the mandatory fighter. I think it's like 75-25. I think it may be as much as like 75-25 for the WBO. That puts Shawn Porter in a position where if they don't come up with an offer that he likes and it gets pushed to purse bid, that no matter what, he's going to get a set amount of money, and it's going to be a lot less than Terence Crawford. And Shawn Porter said it flat out. "Look, man, I'm not fighting for $1 million. He's probably not going to fight for $2 million. A fight with Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford, in my opinion, is a pay-per-view fight that should take place." And so with that said, what is Terence Crawford going to do to set up that pay-per-view fight? That's where I believe that you're going to see him come in against Josesito Lopez or Kieth Thurman. Number one, Top Rank, with the exception of Alexander Bruce Putin, doesn't have anybody. Golden Boy has a fighter to fight Terence Crawford, and that is Virgil Ortiz. I'm not sure how serious Golden Boy is about putting him in there. And Terence Crawford just straight off blew off the idea of fighting him by saying, "Man, let that man grow and develop. There's way too many holes in his game, and I'm just going to destroy him right now." So Golden Boy is boxed out because they only really have one welterweight that, they have two. They've got Rashidi Ellis, who's an up-and-coming welterweight as well, but Rashidi Ellis is distant from the conversation about who Terence Crawford is going to fight next. My leading candidate, of course, in this particular instance, is Josesito Lopez. And the reason why I say it's most likely Josesito Lopez or somebody at the least of that caliber is because that's something that Steve Kim had said on Twitter. Now, Steve Kim, if you're not familiar with him, used to be with ESPN. I think right now he probably writes for like Boxing Scene, but it's just, a well-established writer who has a lot of connections specifically with Top Rank. So Steve Kim saying that he's hearing that Josesito Lopez is a leading candidate for that fight tells me that he is hearing that directly from Top Rank as Top Rank gets prepared to get this guy his fight. Now, we know for certain that he's going to be fighting somebody because of what Teofimo Lopez is going through. With saying, "Hey, man, Top Rank owes me 3 fights a year. If you don't give me these 3 fights a year, you're in breach of contract and I'm out." Terence Crawford more than likely is 2 times a year, right? With the minimum. So now is the March time frame, right? So April, so you got April, May, June, July, right? So maybe 4 months, have him fight somewhere in the July time frame, right around the time that Errol Spence Jr. is ruined to fight. Then you have September, October, November, December, he could probably squeeze in a second fight this year, which would tell me also that the first fight is probably not going to be ultra competitive and that it may lead into the second one. My hope is that this winds up being, a situation where he gets to Shawn Porter. He beats Josesito Lopez, fights Shawn Porter. Errol Spence Jr. fights Yordenis Ugas, and then the two can come for undisputed. That's what I'm hoping happens. You let me know what you think is going to happen, and with that, I'm out. Peace.